Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're located today. And it looks like we've still got a few people trickling in. So I wanted to just touch on a few housekeeping items before I hand it over to Autumn, who's going to be doing our demo today. So thanks for joining us. Our 2x productivity with smart packing cartonization. Looks like we've got some customers as well as some new folks on the line today. So some of you may be familiar with this. Some of you may just be kind of wanting to learn a little bit more. So hopefully we can kind of answer all those questions, accomplish all of those today. So like I said, do want to touch on a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be sending out an email with a link to the recording for today. Usually that'll hit your inbox within about 24 hours. So just be on the lookout for that in case you want to go back and rewatch anything. And please ask any questions that you have. There's a Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen, so feel free to submit any questions through that little box. And I'll try to get those to Autumn or answer those as we go through today. If not, we'll make sure to get you any answers after we wrap up today, just to make sure we get all of your questions answered. And lastly, tell us what you think. There will be a short survey that pops up on your screen at the end of the webinar today. So please feel free to add any comments in there and just let us know what you think so we can continue to give you a good experience. And before I kind of hand it over to Autumn, I want to just kind of set the stage for our life cycle of an order webinar series that you've been hopefully attending or been seeing us promote, and just kind of let you know what we've been covering and what to expect throughout the rest of the series. So the goal with these is to show you how ShipHawk offers a truly end-to-end fulfillment management solution that doesn't just help automate your operation, because there are plenty of solutions that can do that, but how these solutions were developed to fit your unique business needs and help your company scale. So throughout this series, we've been talking about really two life cycles happening at the same time. One is this outer ring of the actual fulfillment operation, and two is the end customer experience. So you can see the fulfillment operation, really started with the receiving items into the warehouse and putting those away, which is where we started our series. Then we've covered, cycle counting inventory as it's sitting in the warehouse. And most recently on our last webinar, we covered picking and batching and saw the 6 advanced picking methods and how those different workflows, help minimize travel, minimize handling, and maximize fulfillment accuracy. So now that Autumn has kind of walked us through that last step of picking the items, we want to talk about our cartonization optimization, which we call smart packing, and how that will really help you maximize throughput and get more orders out the door faster. So that's where we're going to cover today. And then the next few series, the next few webinars of the series, we'll be wrapping things up and really show you the shipper's point of view and actually close the order loop within ShipHawk, so you can see everything being completed within one system without having to go back into your ERP or use multiple systems. And then we'll certainly have a webinar or two on our audit and reconciliation tool, as well as some analytics, so that you can really see how your distribution centers are getting faster. And we'll also make sure to demo our dimensioners, so you get a full picture of the power of each of these solutions. So that's the fulfillment operation life cycle. The other piece I mentioned is this customer experience that Autumn has been taking us through. We've covered how we support in-cart rating, multi-carrier rating, EDI orders in one end-to-end platform. So I'll go ahead and drop the link in here if you want to go back and watch any of the previous webinars, as well as stay up to date when new webinars get posted. You can go to this landing page and sign up. So I will drop a link in there while I hand it over to Autumn. I know you've got a lot to cover today, so I'll let you get started. Do you kind of want to just tell us what you're going to be showing us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Kelly mentioned, today we're going to talk about that packing side. So we're going to go over the different ways ShipHawk can help inform the packing process and speed it up. There's a lot of different UIs that can be used for packing and shipping, and we'll take a brief look at those, but we'll also cover those a bit more in the next webinar in this series that's on the full shipping process. So today is going to be more about how we can help the shipper automate parts of the packing process, verify they're packing the right items, and overall just make packing more intuitive and simpler for the shipper. So we're going to talk about some ways we can automate packing and use our algorithm to make assumptions about how items should be packed. That's referred to as our smart packing algorithm. And to use smart packing, you need to have dimensions and weights of your products, and not everyone has that. Some people may have oddly shaped products or products with very complex packing use cases, or some people don't have consistent packing materials in the warehouse. I've talked to some customers who are always using different boxes and pallets because they're just reusing what actually comes into their warehouse from vendors. And so due to a couple of those reasons, not everyone's going to want to use smart packing. Some people will just want to pack manually because they've got very, different packing scenarios that they're dealing with. So we're actually going to start simple with manual packing, and then we'll build onto that and go through some of the more advanced options we have to speed up the packing process. So that way, whatever your scenario is, we can kind of go through that. So we'll go over smart packing after manual packing. We'll also talk about something that we call packing rules. Pack verify, which is our scan verification if you want the packer to confirm everything that they're packing. And as mentioned before, we'll talk about our different user interface options as well. So in the last webinar series, we went over the picking process in our WMS. After an order is picked in the WMS, then you're ready to actually pack that order. You're probably dropping that off at a packing station for a packer to either pack, then send it down the line and have a shipper ship it, or maybe your packer is doing both packing and shipping. So either way, whether you're using our WMS for picking, or maybe you're using just your ERP, maybe you don't have a WMS or some other system or a homegrown system, something's going to end up at the pack station that's ready to be actually packed and shipped, and we'll kind of start from there. So let's actually walk through that manual packing. So I'm going to go into the TMS here, and we're going to go here, and you're actually going to see our orders queue. So before I jump into an order, let's talk about something you'd want to set up in ShipHawk, which is your packing materials. So in ShipHawk, you'll be able to actually set up all your different packing materials here. And I'll go to packing materials so you can see that. And you can do that either one by saying add packing material, and you can say what type it is. Is it a box? Is it a pallet or an envelope? Or you can actually do that with a CSV and upload a bunch at one time. If you leverage FedEx One Rate, you can actually map your specific container to a FedEx One Rate container so that we know how to properly rate that and what rates that box qualifies for if you guys are using your own packing materials for FedEx One Rate. Or you may just be using FedEx's packing materials, and we'll also add those to your system. So if you're using some of the main parcel carriers, when you add your credentials for those, we're going to automatically add those boxes into your system as well in case you're leveraging any of their packing materials. And all you have to do is just enable them. So I can actually look at all the different FedEx materials here and say, yep, I do use that FedEx material, or whichever ones you guys may be using. So let's actually go into a shipment now. So we're going to go back to our orders page. I'm going to go to an order that has been shipped. Because that's generally the use case we're starting from, right? Your packer's at their station, they probably just shipped something, they've got the next thing in front of them that they're ready to ship. So they're going to go ahead and either scan an item fulfillment number, a shipment number, an order number, depending on your ERP, or if you're using our WMS for picking, maybe they're actually just scanning a tote number here. And that's how they're going to go ahead and pull up the order they have to process in front of them. And so we'll see here, we're going to show them some order information. We're going to show them the warehouse that they're shipping from, the destination it's going to, some custom order references you guys can send into ShipHawk to use for rules or packing documentation. And we'll talk about all that, or sorry, shipping documentation. And we'll talk about that kind of in the next webinar. We're also going to show them the items in the order, tags, and some additional information here. So again, we're talking about manually packing here. So in this case, ShipHawk is not cartonizing this order. It's not saying, hey, here's the box you should use. It's just coming in and saying, all right, we don't know how you want to pack it. You tell me. So to select my box, I can either choose from my setup materials here and say, yeah, I'm going to use this. Or I can actually use what we call a command barcode. So ShipHawk can generate barcodes for your different packing materials, and you can have those posted at the workstation. So when they go and grab their 11 by 8 by 4 box, they can just scan that barcode there, and we'll go ahead and apply that box. We're also going to apply the weight. If you have weight on your items, we'll go ahead and put the weight and the weight of the packing material here. If you don't have any weights, they can also scan a barcode to get the weight, or click this button to actually grab that weight from a connected scale. So now we've got it packed. There's a weight in there. We're all good to go. And we could actually just rate shop and say, okay, now that I've set my material, what's that going to cost me? Because in this case, I didn't know the dimensions before, so it's very likely that my rates are going to be a little bit different because I chose a box now. We can actually see my different options there and choose how I want to ship that and go ahead and ship that out. So I won't do that. We'll ship another one later, but Right now, we're really focused on packing. So you may just have someone packing and then sending it down the line, and someone's going to go ahead and do that shipping process. So I could either save if I'm just the packer, or if I'm the packer and the shipper, I'd probably rate shop, maybe add in the accessorials that I need, and then just go save and ship. And that's going to ship it. That's going to print all my documentation. And that's also going to write back to the ERP. So this is just our standard UI, but we also have something called workstations mode, which I'll jump into now. So there's a lot of different things we can do in workstations mode. I'm just going to show you kind of the basics here of what it looks like. And it looks a lot more friendly for, hey, what items do I have remaining to be packed and what boxes have I built so far? So we'll see here, all I see is very basic order information. I'm not going to see as much information as we did in our standard UI. Again, because this is more focused around, hey, I'm just going to pack here. I don't want to be overwhelmed with information. I just want to, decide what boxes I'm going to put these in. So I can go ahead and open this package, and then I can either scan or use a mouse to actually pack these items in here and say, yeah, I'm going to put these both in the same box. Then I can select that material just like I did in the other UI. It's just a different way to view it. It can be simpler, can be a little bit easier for your shipper to see exactly how they're packing things. And of course, they can always do multiple packages in this workflow or in the other one. They can always say, hey, I want to add an additional package. They can move their items around. They can clone packages if they need to, if they're just shipping a bunch of identical boxes. And they can do that here, or they can do that in here where I say, you know what, maybe I want to put one of those in this box and I want to save that package. And then I'm going to add another package and put this one in its own box. So I can absolutely build multiple different boxes and very easily see what items are in what boxes there. Workstations mode has a lot of different settings here. You can leverage smart packing in workstations mode as well, but right now we're just talking about that manual packing process where it comes in, it's unpacked. You guys are deciding what box you want to put those in. And so we'll kind of jump on from there. So that's the most basic way. We don't know what box they're going to put it in. Your packer is going to go ahead and make that decision and pack that and tell us how they're shipping it. But we can also use our smart packing algorithm. So let's kind of jump in to talk about smart packing. So if you have dimensions and weights for your products, you may want to leverage our smart packing algorithm. And even if you don't have dims and weights of your products today, you can use our dimensioner to very effectively go get all your dims and weights, and then you can leverage smart packing. And if you're looking for more information on this, you can definitely send an email to learn more at ShipHawk.com. But we'll also talk about this, like Kelly said, in a future webinar. We have all kinds of documentation on this as well. But a very helpful way to go get those dimensions if you're like, hey, smart packing looks really cool, but I don't have those dims and weights today. I need to go around and collect those. This is a very effective way to do that without, walking around with a tape measure and measuring all your items. So what is smart packing and why would you use it? So smart packing is our algorithm that can take a look at the items in the order, look at their dims and weights, look at the packing materials you have set up, and decide what's the best way to ship these items to minimize volume. What we don't want to do is send a box to a customer that has an item the size of a flash drive in a box that can fit a guitar, right? You may have experienced that. I know I have, and I kind of open the box and go, why the heck did they do that, right? It's a huge box with a tiny item in it. And that may be, an extreme scenario of that, but that can also happen at a much smaller scale as well, right? Even if the box is just a little bit bigger, you're using more packaging, more, bubble wrap or packing paper you need to. You may be making shipping more expensive because your dims are larger than they really have to be. And it just means that less boxes will fit in a truck, making everything overall less efficient. So additionally with that, maybe they pick a box that's too large and they're sending, some void space they don't need to, or maybe your packer is just looking at your boxes and they pick something that's too small. Then they may pack the order and go, well, wait a second, now my items don't fit in here. Now they have to repack it. They've got a box they've put together that they don't need. They got to put that off to the side. They add additional processing time because they were just kind of estimating by looking at the items and looking at the boxes you have, which just kind of slows down the process. So smart packing can actually do that for them and say, hey, you don't have to go test out all these different boxes. Here's the box that's going to fit your items. And it's going to look for the smallest box that fits those with the minimum amount of void space. And if there is no box that fits all the items, then it's going to go ahead and pack multiple boxes. Smart packing also works for pallets. We'll also pack a pallet and figure out how many pallets do you need and how high is that pallet going to be. So there's two areas where smart packing can benefit you. You can leverage smart packing for more accurate upfront rates. Without smart packing, you may just be quoting customers in cart based on weight of the items alone. And depending on your carrier negotiations, that may be a very different price than when you actually enter the dimensions of a package. So using smart packing means that your upfront rates will be looking at the weights and the dimensions, because ShipHawk's actually cartonizing those items and figuring out what that rate is going to be for your carriers and showing that to your customers. So you can make sure you're really covering that shipping cost in the rate you're charging your carrier or your customers. You can also use smart packing to make packing decisions on the warehouse floor. So that's kind of what we talked about. When a user is actually going to pack, they can view what smart packing is suggesting and actually use that packing configuration to make sure they're sending boxes with minimal void or empty space, and make sure that what you're charging your customer is exactly what it actually is going to cost, because you're packing it the exact same way that smart packing thought you were going to. So you can use smart packing in both of those ways, but you also get to decide how you want to use it. Some people use smart packing for upfront rating to get more accurate rates. And then, rather than just weight-based rating, but they don't actually use it to drive how orders are fulfilled. They still let the warehouse employee pick the box at the time of fulfillment. Other people don't do any upfront rating. They use flat rates or free shipping, but they do leverage smart packing to help packers decide what boxes and pallets to use. And some people use smart packing for both. Any of those are great. Smart packing is for you, and you guys get to decide where it's beneficial in your warehouse. So let's go take a look at a smart packed order here. And we are going to pull up an order here. We're going to just scan that again. I'm at my pack station. I've got my tote in front of me, or an order number to actually process here. And we'll see that now when I come into here, this already has a box applied. So ShipHawk looked at these items and said, hey, based on the dimensions of these items and the quantities of them and the different boxes you have in your warehouse, this is the smallest box that you can fit both of those items in. We think this is the best way to ship it. And so your shipper can look at that. They can say, yeah, all right, I'll go ahead and use that box. They can grab that box. If they need to, update their weight, sometimes people still like to grab the weight from their scale. They can always do that. But really, if they pack it this way, they're just ready to save and ship. And the other thing about that is we've upfront rated here. So we already know what's the cheapest. So if they don't change it, that's the cheapest option, and we're going to stick with that. So they don't even have to re-rate there. They can re-rate, especially if they're changing something or changing a weight, they can always do that. But I could actually just go in here and say, all right, it's already packed. I'm going to go ahead and ship that. And now we're going to ship that with the carrier. We're going to generate all that shipping documentation you need. So in this case, it would just be a shipping label, maybe a carton label if you're leveraging those, and a packing slip. If this was an LTL order, we generate that, pallet label. If you guys use pallet labels, a BOL, international documentation or hazmat documentation, if either of those scenarios applied, and we'll write back to your ERP. And your order is complete. Your customer or your shipper is ready to go on to the next one. So we helped them decide what box to use and made it so they did not need to enter that box or enter dimensions, and made it super easy to ship that order. So that's one way that smart packing can look. There's some advanced packing logic as well. So let's talk about that. So we kind of went over the basics of smart packing, right? It's rotating your items every which way. And even in our little graphic we have, it's not actually rotating items. And their smart packing is, it's checking all the different ways we can orient your items to fit them into the smallest box possible. But you may have some other scenarios, right? There's some complex items that you may have, and there's some additional information that goes along with smart packing. So one thing you get to define is what type of item do you have? So if I go to my product book here, I'm going to go ahead and edit this product. You guys get to tell us, is the item loose, box, or pallet? And loose is just that. It requires, being packed into a box before you can ship it. It's a loose item. You can't just, put a label on it and send it in the mail. A box item is a pre-boxed item. So either that can go with a label directly put on it and just be shipped out, or maybe you want to consolidate that into a larger box if there's more items in the order. And you guys get to decide that with some of our advanced packing settings and say, yeah, I do want to, consider packing this with other items if it's going parcel. Maybe I do want to consolidate it into a box versus just ship it on its own. Pallet is a pre-built pallet. So think, a dishwasher that comes into your warehouse on a pallet, and you're just going to send it out on that exact pallet. You're not going to repalletize it. It's already on a pallet. You can say, hey, this is a pallet. Give us the full dimensions, including that pallet. And then smart packing is not going to try and put it on another pallet. It's just going to say, hey, this basically ships as is, as a pallet. Here's its final shipping dimensions. Smart packing sees all of your items as rectangular dimensions, right? And that's not always the case. So there are some ways we can kind of get around that. So some people may have items that maybe they're oddly shaped and they kind of can nest or stack when you're shipping them. We have a couple ways to kind of get around that. There's obviously really complex scenarios that come and play there, but one thing that you can leverage to give smart packing more information on your items is something we call master packs. A master pack is when an item has different shipping dimensions when multiple of that item is in the order. So that can be used to define case packs. Say when you ship an item on its own, it's a 5x2x2 loose item. It has to get packed in a box and then you can ship it, right? But maybe if someone orders 10 of that item, you're just going to go grab a 10 pack and that's pre-boxed and you can just put a label directly on that. And the dimensions of that are 5x4x10. So you can tell us, when someone orders 10, here's the configuration of how that ships. And you can set up multiple master packs for an item, right? You can have, well, we've got a 10 pack in the warehouse, but we also got a full pallet load of this item. And if someone orders enough to meet that threshold, we're just going to send them that full pallet. Or maybe you sell cones and they're stackable, right? So when someone orders one cone, it's 5x5x10. But if someone orders 10, you're just going to stack those. So it's now just 5x5x15. It just added a little bit in that length dimension. So you can set that up as a master pack and we'll say, hey, if someone orders 10, or maybe you've got it at different levels, you've got it if they order 5, if they order 10, and maybe the tallest we'll ever stack them is 20. And then we're going to send them, multiple stacks of 20. You can set up those master packs in ShipHawk, and ShipHawk will look for that quantity of that specific SKU in the order and say, hey, if I've got a high enough quantity to reach this master pack threshold, I'm going to go ahead and apply these different shipping dimensions. So just where things ship, differently, have different dimensions when you do, 5 eaches versus, well, no, those 5 are kind of in a specific case pack. They have these specific dimensions. So what about other scenarios, right? We also have something called packing rules. You may have heard us refer to this before as teach mode. And packing rules can be used in very specific scenarios when you pack an order differently than smart packing suggests, right? There's always cases where your warehouse employee knows best and they're going to pack it differently than smart packing, and that's fine. They can manually change it. We don't lock them into it. So if they need to make that manual change, if I, go back into that order, let's go back to an order here. If I go into this and, smart packing has said we're using this box, they can always say, you know what, I don't actually want to use that box. I want to use a 12x12x12 for whatever reason. Maybe one of those items needs some extra padding in there, or if you got some promotional things going in the box that aren't usually going in there. But one thing you can do is if you get a common scenario like that, say it's maybe common for someone to order one of SKU A, one of SKU B, and one of SKU C. And when that happens, you like to send it in a specific box. Even if that's different than what smart packing suggests, you can actually give certain users the ability to create packing rules. And I'll kind of show that here. What this does is it overrides smart packing. And every time you get that exact order profile, one of SKU A, one of SKU B, one of SKU C, and no other items in the order, ShipHawk knows exactly how you like to ship it. So that can come in handy for a lot of different reasons, right? Maybe a bundle of items that people order a lot, but isn't actually defined as a kit or an assembly in your ERP. So we actually don't have like kit dimensions. That can just be, I've had people that have 2 items that people order together a lot and they're triangular shaped items. So when they order them, they can kind of stack them and make a square. And they get that order profile a lot. So they say, hey, when someone orders this, I want to consider that these smaller rectangular dimensions because they kind of nest within each other and it's a common order to get together. So they can say, hey, I actually want to change it. So I change this from 6 to 12. And now I can say, you know what? I want to save that. So in this case, I've got the one of this item and one of this item that gets ordered together all the time. I always want to ship it like this. I can go ahead and save that as a packing rule. And that will remember that forever. And that's just really a helpful way to get around some of those odd scenarios that maybe happen frequently, but it's not a typical thing that smart packing would expect, right? You're packing it a different way or in a specific formation that isn't what smart packing suggests, but what you always want to do. So it kind of just helps you get closer and closer to how you actually are going to pack orders all the time while taking care of some of those weird scenarios. And you can also edit those after. So you can always manage and edit those packing rules. You can, change them if you need to. So you'll be able to see all those that get created. And again, usually people will only give this ability to maybe a more advanced shipper or the shipping manager so they can create packing rules, but not anyone can go around and just create packing rules.
Hey,
All
Autumn,
right.
just a couple questions that I thought you might be able to touch on before while we're talking about this. The first one was, does smart packing honor consolidated orders?
Gotcha. So that's kind of a loaded question. I guess the question is what you can do is you can consolidate orders, in our WMS or our TMS. Once you consolidate them, we can rerun smart packing and have it then say, hey, now we've got more items. We want to reconsider it now because we're actually consolidating these all in one order. Does that answer your question? There's kind of a lot of, I don't know if that's the goal that you'd have in mind is, okay, you know, I've combined 3 orders. Now, how should I pack it? We can regenerate and kind of rerun that smart packing algorithm, but let me know if that's not what you were asking about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was from Roy. So if you have further questions, Roy, let us know, or we can certainly reach out afterwards. And then one other question that I figured a couple other people might have is, how does smart packing work with multiple locations set up in NetSuite? Is there specific licensing for multiple locations? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, good question. If that's a pricing question, I don't know. I'm not the pricing person, so I'm not totally sure. But generally, when people are using it in one location, they have it on for all of them. But if you have like warehouse A has no dimensions, warehouse B does, that's fine. Smart packing won't run if it's missing dimensions. So you can kind of have it on across your whole instance, and then it's just gonna run when it has the information it needs. But yeah, I mean, with all your different locations, you'll have all your different items in ShipHawk, all your different item information. So we can run smart packing across all your different locations if you've got the info. And then, one thing that's in line with that is your packing materials. You'll be able to say, you know, here's my packing materials in warehouse A versus warehouse B. So when I go to actually set up packing materials here, if I go to my settings, packing materials, when you create one, you can say, you know, what warehouse is this in? And I didn't put anything in here, but you'll get to assign it to your specific warehouses. And let's just find one that we do have here so you can see that. You can say, hey, this box exists in these 5 warehouses, or maybe it's just one warehouse. So all of your warehouses can have different packing materials, and that's totally fine. We can tell ShipHawk which ones are applicable to which location.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so next thing we're going to talk about is pack verify. So another thing you might want to do during the packing process is actually have your packers and shippers verify that all the right items have been packed and nothing has been missed. So we have a feature called Pack Verify that lets you do just that. We can turn this on in your environment, and then when a user goes to pack an order, the first thing they're going to do is actually scan verify the items in the order and in the boxes that they're putting them in. So I'll jump into an order here, and if they scan something incorrectly, we're going to tell them, hey, that's not in the order, right? So I'm going to go here, and now you'll see my select items, which has previously been green because I haven't had it on, in my other examples here. And this one is now not filled in, and it's going to say, hey, you need to actually pack these before you ship them. And we can prevent a user from shipping an order until they've done this, or we can just give them a notice that says, hey, you're missing items. Are you sure you want to ship it? If you do have some scenario where you want them to be able to short ship. But here, what I would do is I would go ahead and scan those SKUs. As I scan them, it's going to give me that, scan sound. Hey, that's good. That you have that. If I scan that SKU again, it's going to say, hey, you've already packed that. You only have one in this order. Don't pack another one. It's going to tell the shipper, don't do that. That's the wrong item. Put it off to the side. Not supposed to be in here. But if I scan my other item in the order, again, it's just going to make that nice happy noise and say, hey, you're good. If I scan a totally different item, it's going to say that's not in the order. Don't do that, right? So you're going to see those notices. It's going to be flagged. You're going to get those noises that go along with it to make sure that all the right items get packed and nothing additional is getting packed. And now I've packed everything, and I'll say, okay, I'm done. And now it's all good to go. It says it's green. And if I save and ship now, we're totally good. It's not going to give me any notice because I've packed everything I needed to pack. So let's get a little bit more into our various user interface options, right? So here's Pack Verify. You guys just saw that. We talked about our standard UI, which is this one that we were just existing in. We also briefly looked at workstations mode, which kind of looks like this. It's a little bit more focused around just the items that I need to pack. What boxes am I building those into? In workstations mode, there's a lot more that we can talk about here that I won't get into today, but another piece of this is if you guys are doing LTL orders, we can actually have them first pack the boxes. Maybe they're building boxes to put on a pallet, and then secondarily pack those boxes onto a pallet. So we can kind of support that 2-step packing process if they're doing it that way. And then we can also, from here, once they've packed it, they can say finish, and that will go ahead and book the shipment with the predefined shipping method, if there was one. Or we can actually then route them into our standard UI if they need to rate shop after they've packed. So there's a lot of different use cases here for what's needed. do they need to re-rate shop? Do they need to go kind of make some manual adjustments after they pack it in this UI? We can kind of route them to that. Otherwise, we can just go ahead and save and ship from here, print all that documentation, send them into the next order to pack. Another option we have is called ready to ship mode. So ready to ship mode works great if your orders are smart packed, they're already ready to go. And all they need to do is just ship them. So if I come over here, where actually I've got ready to ship mode here, what I can do is literally just scan the order or license plate or tote or whatever they've got related to the order. And that's just immediately going to book it with that information that's already set on that order. So this order happened to be smart packed. It was re-rated or pre-rated with exactly how I wanted it to go out. It's all good to go. I just scan it and say, yep, I've shipped it. It's going to print out my label. I'll put it on the box and move it down the line. We can also build in the pack verify step to that as well. So if you want them to scan the order and then still scan verify the items in the box before they close that box, we can do that too. So you'll see an additional step when that's turned on where it says verify items. And then as soon as they've verified all the items, then it's going to go ahead and automatically book and print out that documentation. All right, so those are just some of the ways we can pack into ShipHawk. There's a lot more we can get into on your item specifics and how smart packing is going to work for you. That's a whole beast of its own. So if you have specific smart packing questions, we're always happy to talk about that, talk about the types of items you have in your warehouse, the types of packing scenarios that you actually have. And then we can also pack and ship in our WMS as well. So some people want to stay in our WMS for the whole process. Or some people like to use a mix. They like to use workstations mode for certain orders, and then they use ready to ship mode for their very basic, just Amazon orders, right? And then they use our standard UI for their LTL orders. Some people kind of mix and match all the different types of workflows there. And really it's what's best for you. We have these different options to make sure that it works with your warehouse needs, that it's the shipping experience or the packing and shipping experience that you want for your users. But that's kind of our high level overview of some of the different options we have, the basics on how those look and how those work. If you want more info, you can always reach out to learnmore@shiphawk.com if you have any specific questions on those. But with that, I will pass it back to Kelly.
Yeah, perfect. A lot of great information. I feel like you kind of just summed it up nicely there. Yeah, if we didn't get to answer any of your questions today, definitely email learnmore@shiphawk.com, or if you think of something after we wrap up today, you can email us and we can certainly get your question answered by the best person. I do also have one asset that you're able to download that's kind of an overview of our packing automation functionality. You can scan that QR code and download that right to your phone and email it to yourself, whichever works better. But that is just kind of an overview that you can review or you just kind of look back on after today's session. And then, as I mentioned, this is part of our webinar series, Life Cycle of an Order. So we have a few more of those that I mentioned, as well as a couple other webinars coming up. So please check our website, our resources page. We've got links to all of the upcoming webinars. And if you're going to be at Sweet World, we will be there as well. We've got a big team going. It's a really exciting event for us. We get to meet with lots of customers and meet new folks as well. So if you are going to be attending, please stop by the booth and say hello. And I think that
Awesome.
is...
One more question came through, so I'll answer that real quick.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah, when a shipping label is printing, can a custom label specific to a customer print at the same time? Yeah, that sounds like a carton label to me. We can absolutely support carton labels, custom pallet labels, right? So it can have different information they may want on there. Maybe they want their PO, they want their address, how many cartons are in the order. So we can support custom carton labels, custom pallet labels, as well as custom packing slips. So if they need a packing slip that's got a specific logo on it or specific information, we can do, an 8.5 by 11 packing slip as well. So a number of different custom documents that we can support there. And we can control what automatically prints for your shippers when they press that ship button. So you guys get to tell us, hey, every time I ship a parcel order, I want to auto print a shipping label and a carton label and a packing slip. Every time I do an LTL order, I want to auto print a BOL and, the different documents that you want. You can even have us auto print multiple copies of a document for if you want. If you want 3 copies of the commercial invoice to print out, totally fine. We can set up those different auto print settings for you.
Great. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us today. Email us or check out the website for any other upcoming events, and we will see you next time. Hope you have a great afternoon.